Okay, so this next lesson on dimensional analysis is going to involve some angle measurements, and depending on what you learned this year, you may or may not have a good understanding of radians. So I'm going to teach this like you don't know it, and if you do, just go ahead and skip through it. So there's 3 ways to measure angles, and those ways are degrees, radians, and revolutions. And I feel like you guys probably have a really good understanding of degrees and revolutions, because degrees is what you guys mainly do in geometry, and you can picture what 30 degrees looks like in your head. And then revolutions is how it's like completing a rotation, like going around completely. Radians is the one that's kind of harder to understand if you've never learned about it before. And what a radian is it takes a radius of a circle and then wraps it around the circumference of a circle. And then that angle forms 1 radian. Right, and then you can keep going. So if we took that radius again and we wrapped it, so that's about close, that's going to give you 2 radians. All right, and then we would do it again. All right, and this whole angle here would be 3 radians. And then just a little bit more is 3.14 radians, about, which is pi. Right, and then if we went all the way around, we kept adding radians all the way around. 1 complete revolution is going to be 2 pi radians. Okay, so some fractions that are equal to 1 that we can use for conversions. For degrees, we could use 360 degrees in 1 revolution. Also, for radians, it would be 2 pi radians in 1 revolution. And then for degrees and radians, we don't really have to go all the way around. We could. It just makes it a little easier if we use 180 degrees in is pi radians. Right? Because if we go halfway around, that's going to be pi, and then everybody knows halfway around in degrees is 180 degrees, and then all the way around the circle is 360 degrees. All right, so let's do some conversions involving angles. So we have 10,000 degrees that we want to change to revolutions. So I would start off just by writing 10,000 degrees. Right, and then we want to cancel degrees. So we'll put degrees in the denominator, and then what we're wanting, 1 revolution in the numerator. Okay, that will cancel degrees. So then in your calculator, you would do 10,000 divided by 360. We technically could also cancel a 0 if you wanted to, but that is going to give you 27.778 revolutions. Okay, and then for radians, we want to change radians to degrees. Now, one thing that's awesome about radians is it doesn't have a unit of measure. So when we're using it in formulas, it really helps you get to where you want to go. But so for 6 radians, we would just write 6. And then if we want to change that to degrees, I'm going to use this fraction right here. So degrees is in the numerator and this one, and radians is in the denominator, and that's what we would use because I want to cancel radians and change it to degrees. Okay, so in the calculator, you would do 6 times 180 divided by pi. Now, if you don't have a graphing calculator at home that has a pi button, it's fine. Just put in 3.14 for pi. And then that is going to give you 343.775 degrees. And hopefully that makes sense to you because it's 6 radians is almost all the way around a circle. because all the way around is 6.28 radians, and so 6 is just a little less than that, which is a whole lot of degrees. Almost all the way around is getting close to 360 degrees. Okay, and then for 3 and 4, we have an angle measurement and a time, which is considered to be angular velocity. All of the velocity in the last lesson was linear velocity, so these are angular velocities. So if something is traveling around a circle, there is an angle that is changing at a certain rate. So anyway, number 3 is 16 hours, or 16 per hour. And we want to change that to revolutions per minute. So 16 per hour technically means 16 radians per hour. So we don't have a unit of measure. We're talking about radians. Okay, so we want to change radians to revolutions. So when we're changing radians to revolutions, we're going to use a version of this formula, but we're going to use the reciprocal of it because we want to cancel radians, and radians is technically in the numerator, and we want to change to revolutions. Now when we cancel radians, we don't actually have anything to mark out because there wasn't a unit to change. All right, and we want to change hours to minutes. So hours is in the denominator, so I will put hours in the numerator to make sure that it cancels. And I want it to become minutes, so I will put minutes in the denominator. So my hours changes. So my units that I'm left with are the units I'm left with are revolutions per minute, which is what I wanted. And so in the calculator, you have to be super careful when you're dividing by 2 pi. So if you're using a graphing calculator, I would recommend that you would do 16 divided by, and then 2 pi in parentheses, and then divided by 60. Otherwise, your calculator will divide by 2 and then multiply by pi if you don't have the parentheses. The other thing you could do is change 2 pi to just 6.28. So divide by 6.28 because that's twice a pi approximately. And then your decimal may be off slightly, but it'll still be fine. It'll be close enough. All right, so this is going to give you approximately 0.042. And then for revolutions per minute, it's fine if you just call that RPMs. Okay, and the last one we're going to do is 1 billion degrees per year. Okay, so we're going to take 1 billion degrees per year, and we're going to change that to RPM. Now, I just talked about RPM is revolutions per minute. So I want to change degrees to revolutions. So I want to cancel degrees. So I'm definitely going to put degrees in the denominator. I want to become revolutions. So I'm going to put revolutions in the numerator. And then I think you guys are pretty good at knowing that there's 360 degrees in one revolution. Okay, and then I want to change years to minutes. All right, so we have years in the denominator. Since I want to cancel years, I'll put it in the numerator. Now, I do not know how many minutes are in a year, but I do know how many days are in a year. And I know how many hours are in a day. So that'll cancel days. And I know how many minutes minutes are in an hour. And since hours was in the denominator, to cancel it, I have to make sure I put hours in the numerator. Okay, so then we would, degrees canceled, I didn't mark it out. So that means I'm left with revolutions per minute, which is what I wanted. So now it's just a matter of typing it in the calculator. So you would do 1 billion divided by 360 divided by 365 divided by 24 divided by 60. And that is going to give you approximately 5.285 revolutions per minute. Now, being able to do this dimensional analysis is going to help you more than just in your math class. It will help you also in science classes. If you're going to take chemistry, this is a huge part of chemistry. So if you've already taken chemistry, it probably seems